All right, well, good morning, everyone. I know a lot of you are actually gone for class today, so we decided to try to make this a short little video so you don't fall too far behind. So today we're talking about box and whisker plots. So a box and whisker plot is a data display that divides a set into 4 parts. The median, or second quartile, which you guys should remember what median is based on what we talked about on Monday. And that's going to separate the set into 2 separate halves to start. The numbers that are below the median, and also the numbers that are above the median. So you got second quartile, or the median, separates into 2 halves. You have numbers that are below and numbers that are above. The first quartile, again, this is just going to be some quick little vocab so you guys can understand what I'm talking about here in a little bit. The first quartile is talking about the lower half, the numbers that are below the median. And the third quartile are also the numbers that talk about the numbers, as you guys probably have figured out, that are above the median, or the upper half. I'm going to call it the upper half. Okay? So that's just some of the quick little vocab that you guys need to know. Just that second quartile is pretty much just your median. Separates it into 2 halves. You have numbers that are below and above. And your first quartile is the lower half, and the third quartile is the upper half. So I want to just go through a couple of quick examples so you guys can understand what's going on. I gave you kind of some step-by-step process of how you can go about making your box and whisker plot. The first thing that I would suggest to you is write the numbers in order. You need to do that immediately. You can do that many different ways. You can do it by just looking at the set, but as we learned yesterday, a very helpful thing to do is actually use what we call a stem and leaf plot, which you guys all were talking about yesterday, and we showed you. The second step is we want you to find the second quartile, or the median. And then after you find that second quartile, we want you to find the first and the third quartile as well, which I'll show you how to do in a second. Then after you find those numbers, we want you to draw a number line that includes the least number, or your minimum, and also the greatest number, which is your maximum. And then we want you to plot at least the first, second, and third quartiles along with the least number and the greatest number. And we want you to draw a line from the first quartile to the third, and we'll show you how to make this whole box that we're talking about that extends from the first to the third, and draw a vertical line for the second quartile, which we'll show you here in a second. So we have this set of numbers. We have 11, 19, 5, 34, 9, 25, 28, 16, 17, 11, 12, and 7, which is a pretty good amount of numbers. So I'm actually going to make a quick little stem and leaf plot so I can figure out exactly what things I have. So my least amount of numbers I have are going to be single digits. Then I have some 10s, 20s, and 30s in my set. So I'm going to make a quick little stem and leaf plot. Sorry for the ugly handwriting. To start. So the first numbers I see, I have an 11, so I'm going to put that with my 10s, a 19, and then we have a 5, we have a 34, a 9, which goes up here with the zeros. We got a 25, goes in my 20s, 28, 16, 17, 11, 12, and then last but not least 7. So there's a good little stem and leaf plot, but the key is I told you that we want you to have them in numerical order, which they're not in numerical order right now. So I'm going to put them in numerical order, just like we did yesterday, just taking them from the stem and leaf plot and putting them in numerical order. So I'm going to look at my 0 to 9 place, and we figure out that we have a 5, then a 7, then a 9. Looking at my 10s, I have 2 11s, and then I got a 12, a 16, 17, and a 19. Going to 20s, we have a 25, and then I'm going to keep going down here on the bottom, 28, and also a 34. So now the second step is, after we get them in numerical orders, we want to find the second quartile, or their median, which the median means that we just need to be able to figure out how many numbers we have. So if I count them up, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that means we have 12 numbers. So to find the median, we take 12 and we want to divide it by 2, just like we talked about on Monday, which means 6. So if I decide to go through and find where my sixth number is, I'm going to end up getting into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to get to a 12 here, going from the left side. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I get to a 16 on the other. So that means I end up getting to 12 and 16, which are my two middle numbers. But the problem is there's not just one middle number. So like we talked about on Monday, to find that median, what we do is we add those two numbers together, which we add 12 and 16, which is 28. And then we divide that by 2 to find our median, which that ends up equaling just a nice 14. So our median, or second quartile, I'm going to write second quartile, or second Q, is 14. So now after I find my second quartile, I need to find my first and my third quartile, which the way I find that is by finding the halfway mark from those points as well. So if I go from 5 to 12, which is from my least number to my halfway mark, I end up having 6 numbers there. I got 5, 7, 9, 11, 11, and 12. So if I want to go halfway between those, I'm going to go 3 places, which if I go 3 places, I go 5, 7, 9. Then I also go 12, 11, and 11. So I get in between 9 and 11. So if I want to find my first quartile, I have to add those two numbers together, which would be 20. And then I have to divide that by 2 as well, which will then just give me a nice 10. So my first quartile is 10. Now I need to do the same thing for my third quartile. So to find my third quartile, I'm going to do the exact same thing with my first. I see that I have 6 numbers, 16, 17, 19, 25, 28, and 34 in my second half. And I need to find half of that, which would be 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I get to a 19. And I go from 34, and I go 1, 2, 3, and I get to a 25. I would show you with my fingers, but you can't see my fingers. So then I add those two numbers together, which gives me a 34. And then I end up dividing that by 2. Actually, no, that's a 44. Sorry, it's a 44. Then you divide that by 2, and you get a 22 as your third quartile. So you got 19 plus 25 is 44. If you type that on your calculator, and then you divide it by 2, and you get 22. So you got your first quartile, second quartile, and third quartile, which is awesome. That's exactly what we wanted. So now I want to make a nice number line that includes my least number and my greatest number. So my least number that I have here is a 5, and my greatest number is a 34, which means I can just bump it up to 35 in my number line, and we'll be good to go. So I'm going to go from 5 to 35, and the way I'm going to do that is by jumping by 5s for each check mark that I create. So I got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I'm going to label my first one and my last one, just so I know, to make sure that everybody understands that I'm going from 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. Alright? So we got that far so far. So we draw the number line, got that all done. So now I need to plot my least number, my first, second, third, and greatest number. So my least greatest number is at 5. So I'm going to draw a nice point here at 5. And then I look at my first quartile, which is 10. That's nice because we got a nice point there at 10. Then we look at my second quartile, which is 14, which is right before 15, so we're going to draw a dot right about there. Third quartile is 22, which is in between 20 and 25. A little bit more towards 20, so we got a point there. And then my least number is 34, like I said earlier, so we're going to put them right there. Alright, so we got all my points plotted. We got a 5, 10, I'm going to put a 14 right here. And then we got a 22, and then we got a 34. Alright, so now that we have those numbers all plotted, the next thing we want to do is I want to draw a line all the way through all of these numbers here. I want to draw actually a line from my least number to my first quartile, and then a line from my greatest all the way to my third. So it looks like I just drew two lines and we got a big gap in the middle, which is what we want to see. So once we draw the lines from the least to the first and from the greatest to the third quartile, I'm going to create a box. And my box actually extends from my first quartile all the way down to my third. Draw a nice big box. And so that's my quartile box, is what I like to call it. And then my quartile box actually contains my second quartile, which means I need to just draw a vertical line right where my median would be, or my second quartile. And after you do that, you're all done. So you end up getting through just that problem right there. Is you have your least number at 5, first quartile at 10, median at 14, and you end up having a third quartile at 22, and your least number is 34, and that's how your box and whisker plot should look. Something like that. Hopefully it's a little bit neater than mine. So we're going to move on to another